just get into it. So, all right, cool, man. So this is Eric Herrera. And you wrote a book called A Bomb Hunter's Story, My Life Clearing the Roads of Iraq. I gotta say, I read the book and wow, it's not what I expected. But I'm not really sure what I did expect. You know, it was kind of it was it was intense for as thin of a book as it is, you know, like according to like or compared to a thicker book. But it was a very intense, in-depth story. So kind of just hand the floor over to you, let you introduce yourself to my listeners, kind of get a feel for who you are, and then we can just kind of go from there. Um, yeah, so this is Eric Herrera, and I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Eric Herrera. I'm from south side of Chicago, south suburb. I've grown up all over Chicago, but I'm mainly in suburbs right now of South Chicago. I joined the military in 2005. I was kind of like a little bit of a rebel. I didn't go to class or anything. I was ended up going to Northern Illinois University, and I just didn't feel like participating in class, so I ended up getting kicked out of college. And I was left with an ultimatum by my mother, and I'm like, she said, you stay here, pay rent, get a job. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I had a few friends that joined the military, so I decided to look for myself, and really did not know what I wanted to do. I found the listing for combat engineer, and the listing was really vague. The description for it was building fortification and clearing minefields. But that's kind of the description for like World War II and Vietnam. And by the time I joined the military, the Army decided to use combat engineers in a different way. They used us for route clearance since these IEDs were popping up all over Iraq and Afghanistan. And we knew explosives. They picked us for the job to find these IEDs to clear.
Yeah.
And I was deployed twice, both times in Iraq, once in Baghdad, another further south in a town called Hilla, much smaller town. And I left in 2010. I just had a lot of different things going on in my life, and things in the military were changing as well that I didn't really like. And I'm kind of glad I did get out, because it's kind of gotten a little bit worse on the rules and just the nitpicking. It's not what it used to be, I think, the military. And but now I'm back in Chicago, and I work as a property manager now. And I decided to write this book because a lot of emotions that were bottling up inside, things that happened. A lot of times I would talk with family members of guys that we lost in Iraq, and they were always getting like half truths or the full story of what happened to their loved ones. And me being there for both incidences, I wanted to tell the truth from my point of view of what happened. I really didn't care what people thought. I knew I was going to get a little bit of a pushback from some people, but they weren't going to do anything, because then that meant that they would have to answer for their decisions. So I knew I wasn't going to get any pushback for writing this. But the main thing was for me to have closure, and family members of our fallen soldiers closure a little bit. And it helped them a lot, knowing what really happened to their loved ones. I just got out in 2010. So like 2009 is when I kind of had my breakdown in my kitchen. And I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So I decided to write on paper everything. The more and more I wrote, the better I felt. I didn't have to carry the burden anymore of keeping all those memories inside and the pain. And it's been almost 2 years now, and I'm at peace and think more clearly, and I'm just living my life as it is right now in a much better way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The whole writing it down thing is kind of weird. So I actually so May 15th, 2018, I went to rehab. Um, I have this really weird rare form of cancer, and so I was getting painkillers thrown at me, on top of like I'd been kicked out of college as well when I was younger for drinking too much. Pretty similar story at that point, which I was hoping to get into. But so I ended up going to this rehab, and you go through like the 12-step programs, and a lot of them you have you writing stuff down, mainly like a 4-step. It's kind of like your inventory of everything that's happened throughout your life, and taking a pen to paper instead of like typing it out and everything, or like actually like, being in class using pen and paper. I feel like that it does get some of that stuff just off your chest in a very odd way. I don't know how it works, but it's almost like you have these words as a bank in your mind, and as soon as you put it out, it's just you like you said, you don't have to keep that weight anymore. If you I know you had a pretty long story, so with the whole not passing college thing, would you mind kind of talking about how like the party days, kind of like basically the beginning of your book, and then kind of going through why you decided not to actually put the effort in at school, and like kind of finish school and everything like that.
Uh, the first mistake I did was room with my best friend from since third grade or since fourth grade. That was the number one mistake. We had too much of a good time. Plus, we were the only city kids on our floor. A lot of the other kids were from rich suburban neighborhoods
Right.
outside of Chicago, and we were kind of considered like the bad guys because we were from the city. So I don't know, maybe we thought maybe we'd raise a little havoc or whatever, but I mean that's what we did. We started hanging out at fraternities and really just really didn't care that much. I mean, I don't know. I just felt uh, it was just a better lifestyle, and if I did go to class, I would go with a Pepsi bottle with rum and Coke in it and sit in the back of the class. So it was a little bit rough, but yeah, this I I rarely went. I think I've pretty much failed every class that I did except one. And Northern Illinois told me that I think I got to get out. So that's why I had to make another decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in your book, you actually said that your mom was like in the room or in the car or something like that for that phone call, and you had it on speakerphone. I'm sorry.
It was,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
it was like an hour long car ride back home. It was just dead silent. It was just the most awkward thing in the world. I knew she was pissed, and but I had to figure something out, and I found my roommate. He actually ended up joining a couple months before I did. So, and a couple other friends too. So I was able to talk with a little bit of recruiters, but I decided to go and find out for myself. And another big thing was my uncle, who was a Vietnam vet, was a combat engineer as well. So I got a lot of information from him too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it almost kind of sounded like in your book, the way you worded it, at least from my perspective, if memory serves me correctly, that your mom was severely against you joining the military. And it was almost like it kind of seemed like you used it as a weapon. Like, I'm not doing this, but I'm going to do this, expecting her, to hate it and give you more time. And you just kind of kept going with it. Has that affected your relationship in any way? Like now, like you guys are cool now, right? As far as that goes, like,
Oh, it never affected our relationship. She was pissed. She even went to the recruiting station to get me out of it, but because she told the recruiter he's an only child, he can't join. I don't
yeah,
allow it.
yeah, that's what
And
it
they
was.
were they're like, well, that rule doesn't apply anymore if he's volunteering. So I told her like I need to do this. I need to get away from everything. I need to have a fresh start. And
Yeah.
it was one of the better things that happened to me.
Yeah. Now, when,
But yeah, our relationship now. I mean, our relationship is even stronger now than it
yeah,
was before. I mean, so she's proud of everything that I did, and it took her a while to read my book because she didn't really want to know the things that I went through.
yeah, it gets pretty intense. I don't even really know where to start because it seemed like your book went from, kind of not, I don't want to say slow, but like you're setting everything up to Christmas Day, and then it's just this big explosion, of kind of what happens. Uh, do you mind kind of like walking us through exactly like what happened as far as like joining the military, what that's even like? Because I know I don't want to do it, like that takes balls to even sign up. So let alone actually going through that, what that process is like, what it looks like, and kind of finding out exactly what your position even is. Because it seemed like you had no idea what you had actually signed up for until the day that you were getting ready to go do it. And they're like, hey, this is your job, so kind of walk us through that a little bit. And, if you don't mind just kind of telling us what it actually felt like to do something like that, obviously scary.
And you watch all the war movies and uh, basic training movies, and some of it's similar, but it really doesn't hit you until you get off the bus that they take you from the airport to the in processing facility. It doesn't hit you until you get off the bus and you see the drill sergeant standing out there waiting for you. It was a lot harder for me because I was about 200, almost 280 pounds, and I'm 6'3", and at 19, the Army had me. I had to be at 180 pounds, so I was over 100 pounds overweight. So I was the the butt of the joke, but I was always the one getting hit by the drill sergeants, calling the fat guy,
Mhm.
um, this and that. But I played sports all my life, so I was used to having a coach in my face all the time. So the whole drill sergeant, like shark attack things that they do, really never really bothered me. I mean, sometimes it would get to me, because sometimes I couldn't do a certain thing because I was a little overweight. But I just kept trying, and the first the first month was hell for me because it was just constant like marching and um, doing drills, and it wasn't until maybe about the fourth week until we had like a little bit time to relax, and that's when we started our rifle qualifications, and then it became fun. um, even trying to eat, I mean, you see maybe see a couple basic training movies that guys are scarfing their food down. In the beginning, we barely got time to eat. You get one bite of your food, and then they kick you out. I mean, it's 100, like maybe 130 guys that you have to feed in 20 minutes because the next group is coming in.
Oh my
So,
God.
so you're moving fast. You might get maybe a couple bites to eat, but I don't know. For some reason, like halfway through, I was like training my body to consume a small amount, but still have energy at the same time. But I was so big because I was burning off that excess fat that I actually ended up losing 70 pounds in basic training. And I lost 70 pounds in 16 weeks. And
Jesus, man.
so I got down to maybe about like 215 or something like that, but I was still
Right.
overweight to Army standards, even though I looked like a skeleton at that point.
So how did they
And
let you in with you being overweight? I thought there was like
um,
you had to meet the qualifications before basic training, or obviously I don't know what I'm talking about, but
yeah. So you have like a physical fitness test. So it's like push ups, sit ups, run 2 miles. I mean, if even if you pass that, um, they'll still let you go. If you're overweight, they might put like a little flag on you saying, hey, you can't get promoted or something like that. But my drill sergeants were um, really cool about it because they saw how hard I worked, and they would just like maybe blow it to the side, saying, yeah, he made weight. So they might fudge my number a little bit. But I mean, um, things like that do happen. So like any other job, like if you see a guy doing good job. You might fudge a little thing here or there. So that's what kind of the drill sergeants did for me. And I was grateful for that, because otherwise I would actually had to been recycled. So I would have to go back and do some of the training over again. But I had cool drill sergeants. So
Yeah. So when you get off that bus, do you go like they're yelling at you from first step off, and within minutes you're getting your hair shaved and the whole nine? Is that pretty accurate as far as like Full Metal Jacket style, like bus yelling the whole line?
yeah, I got off the bus and they put you in this big hall with all these benches. There's maybe about 300 girls and guys sitting on these benches, and it caught me completely off guard because I was one of the first people off the bus. And they took maybe 10 of us, and they're filing us in front of this room that like had no windows in it. And they open up the door and you turn the corner and there are the barber chairs with the barbers waiting for you. And you're like, oh man, okay, this is it. The guys that you came on the bus with and talked to, by the time they had their head shaved, you couldn't even recognize them anymore. It was just like everyone was equal at that point, just shaving all your hair off. And you're like, all right, here we go. This is what's going to happen. Then they take you to go get your gear that you're going to have for the next 16 weeks. And it's a fast process. You have to go through information, make sure all your information's right. They ask you, where do you want to end up going after basic training? So you get like 3 choices. I chose Germany, Alaska, and Texas, I believe. And Germany was my first choice. So I was able to get that. I was happy about that.
Nice. And then how long until your basic training, you kind of go through that? And then from there, what happens? Are you immediately deployed, or are you given time with your family to kind of collect all your thoughts and figure out what's going on next? Or what's kind of the next step in the process?
So you do basic training, which is like 12 weeks. And depending on what your job is, the schooling is after that. So for combat engineer, it was about 4 weeks. So that's why I was there for 16 weeks. Mm-hmm. Some schools are a couple months. Some schools are even a year. I know like the chemical school, you're like in school for a year before you even start your contract. So it's a little bit crazy, some of the schools. And but yeah, they do that, and then they give you maybe about a week or 2 weeks, because by the time you're in basic training, you build up leave time. So you go home for maybe about a week or 2. I was able to go home for 2 weeks, and my family, I'll see the school. I was like, just ship me everything right after that. I got on the plane and went there.
All right. Having internet issues. Thinking 2021 things would be perfect at this point. Oh my God, horrible timing. So you're going through this whole kind of like beginner process. How long until you find out what your actual job really entails? Because it seems like you didn't really know what was going on. And
no, we didn't know. I got to Germany. They told us that we were going to be deploying in a couple months from when I got there. There was a lot of bases closing in Germany, so they were consolidating a lot of the units, especially the combat engineers. But we got delayed over a year, just kept getting delayed, pushed back our deployment. At the time, we were just training. Germany has one of the bigger training bases out there, and which is kind of dumb because we didn't even know where we were going at the time. They were telling us we might go to Afghanistan, we might go to Iraq, we might go to Africa, and we're in the middle of the German winter training in negative 10 degrees. We're going to train for an environment that's over 100 degrees, which was a little redundant, but I don't get paid to think.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it's the the norm everywhere he goes. It's the people up above that do get paid to think don't think correctly for the people that are actually doing the work. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then so they told us that we were going to be doing route clearance. We really didn't know what that entailed. We were just told that we were going to be finding IEDs on the side of the road. Um, and we're like, okay, so how do we train for that? It was really hard because in Germany, the training bases is all woods. So I mean, we're not training in like we're going to a city. We end up going to Baghdad, but we're in the middle of the woods training. So it was a lot of mix-ups and a lot of screw-ups too that I explained in my book about that. About just a lot of power tripping going on because people were actually kind of pushing really hard for us to go on this deployment. And higher ups, if they have deployments under their belt, that gives them room for promotions because of experience and stuff. So it was really a clusterfuck at the time because we're getting pushed in this situation and we really don't know what we're getting into until we finally got to Baghdad.
yeah. It seems like that's like a common theme throughout your book of having to deal with like political bullshit of people that aren't actually on the ground. Um, yeah, I don't understand how people can deal with things like that, especially when you're dealing with your life. You know, like it'd be one thing if you were working at Walmart and you were upset with the people up above, but there's other people that are telling you to go do some things that don't make sense to you and your life is on the line. So I yeah, for you to stick it out like you did, that takes some balls, man. Especially going through what you guys went through. Now you're well, not your team. I'm sorry if I'm getting the words mixed up a little bit. Your platoon. Where did you get assigned to them immediately, or is that something that you kind of like built up over time, I guess, like from the time that you got there? And did you get danced around a little bit, or was it just these are your guys and you kind of hit the ground running?
Over Germany. So the unit was bare when I got there. And over maybe had to have been over like a 2 or 3 month period. New recruits would come in every 2 weeks from basic training. My group was one of the first ones that came in, so we kind of had an idea of what we were doing. I had to get used to it because living in Germany, it's almost like being deployed. It's another world compared to the States. Um, I mean, I don't know how you explain it. I mean, it's uh, just basically its own little world. I mean, they don't take um, any direction from any posts in the states. We're on in a small base in Germany. I mean, there's only I think like 5,000 of us on these bases in Germany that where I was at, compared to like something like Fort Hood. They have like almost 60,000 soldiers on those bases. So I mean, it's literally living in your own little world.
Yeah. So how exactly do you guys train to pick up IEDs? Because in your book you talked about how like even coming back, it was hard for you to drive down the road because you're seeing trash, and you may see something in there. You're finding IEDs inside of the like dogs' bodies, and you're kind of training for these things out in the woods. It's not ideal conditions to learn about driving and picking up trash on the side.
We were issued these RG-31s. They're very large vehicles, and they're a little bit more bomb resistant than your regular Humvee. Um, that's what they tell us, but from experience, it really isn't. I have a little model. It's called the Buffalo. I explain in the book. It's quite large. If you ever seen the first Transformers movie, this is the Decepticon that Optimus Prime is fighting on the highway. So, I mean, this thing is maybe over 50 feet tall, almost, I believe it is. And what we do is use this crane that's on the top, and it's a hydraulic crane, and it holds about 250 pounds. ever found anything suspicious, we would honor it, or 6 days out of the week. And missions would be maybe between 8 to